Okay, good morning. It's such a pleasure to be back here again. I've been coming here for quite a number of years now, but my affiliation with Kawana Life goes back beyond my Destiny Rescue years. I've been with Destiny Rescue now for 11 and a half years, but my parents have been members of Kawana Life now since the late 1990s. When the church was just in its infancy stage. And Mum is here today. She has been a member ever since those days. Dad passed away in 2010, 15 years ago. So this church has been not just like any normal church that I usually come and visit, but it's good to see so many familiar faces throughout the years as I've been coming here. Those who don't know about Destiny Rescue, I thought I would start with just a small animated video that just gives you a little overview of the work Destiny Rescue is doing. I'm not going to go into great detail today myself because most of you are familiar with it. And then I'll hone in a little bit more on Nepal, as you are aware that I was in Nepal earlier this year. So if we just start with the video, and then we'll go from there. Cool, and just before I start, I need to give a content warning because of the topic that I speak on, which is human trafficking, sexual exploitation. I just have to let you know that if anything that I say this morning triggers anything within you, feel free to leave the room for a few minutes, I will not be offended. Unless you're all going to get up and leave, then I'll start wondering why, but please feel free. I won't be going into anything too deep. A number of years ago, a friend and I went over to the US to have a holiday with a pastor friend of ours of 8 years. He moved his whole family over to the US from Australia to pastor a church over there. Actually, Mum was his first convert way back in the day. And we arrived at the airport and had a reunion at the baggage claim area. And just as we were about to get our bags, he said to my friend and I, "Don't worry about your bags. My chauffeur will take care of them for you." And just as I was about to clarify if I heard right, a chauffeur came through the door, all dressed up in the chauffeur uniform, and introduced himself and then took our bags out the door. Now, waiting us outside the door was this magnificent maroon Cadillac, like nothing I'd ever seen before. And he started loading our bags into the back of this Cadillac. Well, it wasn't long, and we were driving along a 6-lane highway in Portland, Oregon, just soaking in the comforts of this Cadillac, when suddenly I noticed that the chauffeur was referring to our friend, whose name is Peter, referring to him as Sir, and the conversation was very businesslike. And the last thing I remember him saying is, "Would you like me to take the northern entrance, sir?" And next thing, we turned right down this driveway, and in front of us was this beautiful mansion. We pulled up at the door, were greeted by a butler and a maid, all in their uniforms. And then next thing, the maid dismissed herself and said that she will go up and let Madame Margot, Peter's wife, let her know that her guests had arrived. So she disappeared up this beautiful staircase. And at that moment, Peter decided to reveal the truth. That mansion wasn't his home. It was actually the Bible seminary. The chauffeur, butler, and the maid weren't chauffeur, butlers, and maids. They were friends of his who agreed to give us an experience that we wouldn't forget. The Cadillac was borrowed by a friend for the evening. So we joked. It was joke. We had fun, and we ended up going in his car to a more humble dwelling. But in actual fact, that night, we were being deceived. We were being fed a lie, and we believed that it was truth. Human trafficking and exploitation is centered around this kind of deception. I actually looked up the dictionary meaning for deception, and it says, deception is the act of deliberately misleading or tricking someone, making them believe something false is true. It involves the intentional hiding or misrepresentation of the truth, often for personal gain or advantage. Now, we know that deception's not a modern day thing, that deception goes right back through history, right back to the Garden of Eden with Eve in the garden where Satan was posing as a serpent. Now, the serpent here didn't use violence to trick Eve. He started with a question. Did God really say that? So he was putting doubt in Eve's mind of God's command. Then he twisted the truth and he said, you won't die. You'll actually be like God. You'll know the difference between good and evil. He offered a promise that if they ate the fruit, their eyes would be opened and they would be like knowing God, knowing good and evil. Eve at that moment was being deceived. She saw, she desired, and she took it. Further down in Genesis in 27, we see another form of deception where Isaac is old and he has 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. And he asked Esau to go out and do some hunting, prepare a special meal because he wanted to give Esau, his oldest son, a blessing. Now Rebekah, Isaac's wife, the mother of the 2 boys, overheard this, and Jacob was her favourite son. So she said to Jacob, "You must go out, get 2 goats, bring it back. I'll prepare a similar meal, and you must dress like in Esau's clothing and put the goat skin on your arms," because we know Esau had hairy arms. Jacob didn't, so he put the skin of the goat on his arms to mimic Esau's hairy arms. At first, Isaac was confused, but he could smell Esau through the clothing, so he gave the blessing. Now, when Esau heard about this, when he came back and heard that Jacob had got the blessing, he was very angry, and he demanded his father to give him the blessing. But Isaac said that it was too late. So then Jacob had to flee his family then to avoid the wrath of Esau. And Jacob didn't take the blessing by force. He took it by a lie. He wanted something good, and so he went after it. Another story in the Bible that we don't hear a lot of, but it's in Judges, and here we see deception disguised as trust and love. And it's where Samson is the judge of Israel. He's set apart from birth to deliver his people, but he falls in love with Delilah. Now, Delilah was bribed by the Philistines to find out the secret of Samson's strength. So Delilah wore Samson down. She failed a couple of times, but then finally Samson gave in and told her the secret of his strength, which was behind his long hair. During the night, she cut Samson's hair. The Philistines come in, gouged his eyes out, and then he was blind. Delilah pretended to love Samson, but actually paid to destroy him. If you love me, you will do this is one of the oldest manipulations back through history. Samson loses his strength, he loses his freedom, and he loses his sight. That same deceptive spirit is alive and well today. And in the work that we're doing with Destiny Rescue, we see this type of deception on a daily basis. Traffickers use lies to lure children. They use lies like, "I'll give you a job so then you can support your family by sending money home to them." Or, "I love you, let's run away together," is a common one. Or another one is, "This is normal, everyone your age is doing it." These things sound like hope to them, like promise, like a good future, but it doesn't provide those things. Instead, it leads to slavery and not freedom. Most cases, the girls aren't taken by force. They're taken by being tricked. Thousands are being deceived daily. Earlier this year, as you know, most of you know, I had the privilege of taking some annual leave and going over to Nepal for a holiday. But while I was there on holiday, I was able to spend 10 days going and visiting the projects that we are doing in Nepal. Now, Nepal, many of us know of Nepal as Mount Everest and the amazing Himalayan mountains. But under the surface of these mountains lies a lot of human suffering. Nepal is vulnerable to sex trafficking, to child labour, and even organ theft. And there's several reasons why these issues exist there. One is poverty. Many families in Nepal are very poor, and this makes people more likely to accept risky job offers, sell their organs because they're desperate for money. When I was there, I actually heard about a whole village who sold their kidney out of desperation for money. And even traffickers were drugging some of their victims and then taking their kidneys and selling it on the black market in India. Another area is lack of education, so people are unaware of their rights and the dangerous situations that are around them. And this makes it easier for traffickers to prey upon the vulnerable. Weak law enforcement's another one. Even though they do have trafficking laws there, because of the corruption and the lack of resources and the poor training. These issues aren't dealt with like in countries like here in the West. Another big issue is that it borders with India. Now, India has a border between Nepal of 1,000 kilometres, and these borders are poorly managed. It's like going from Coolangatta to Tweed Heads. They just can walk across at any time of day with no passport patrol or anything like that. So with 1,000 kilometres, there's a lot of areas along that 1,000 kilometres where traffickers can take children across the borders. Other issues is unemployment, political instability, the caste discrimination issue also plays a big role. But one thing I did witness while I was there is 2015, some of you might remember, they had a big major earthquake there. 9,000 people were killed and many thousands and thousands lost their jobs and their homes. So this led to a lot more people being vulnerable to trafficking as well. And as you can see by the photos there, they're still trying to recover from the earthquake. There's still lots of buildings like this around Nepal. The issue in Nepal, the traffickers, sometimes they're strangers, sometimes they're people they know, will build trust with the child over time, and then when they feel like they've got the trust, they will offer them job opportunities or marriage or a better way of life if they come across with them to India. But what happens is when they go across the border to India, they'll get sold into a brothel, a sweatshop, or even homes, domestic homes where they help with the domestics, and then this leads to abuse of the child as well. So what Destiny Rescue is doing is we employ women to stand on these border crossings to identify those that have been trafficked. The border stations vary in size. There's some that are really big with thousands of people crossing on a daily basis. Some are very remote. But last year, while I was there, I had the opportunity to visit 5 of these stations. And last year, there was 23,000 interviews that took place at these borders with women and children going across. While I was at one of the borders, the one on your screen now, this was our largest border. I got to see many interviews this particular day. And one of the interviews that I saw from beginning to end was a girl in the green dress. This is, you can move, yep, that one. Now her story was that she was crossing the border and she was traveling with 2 guys. Now she was 16 years old, and one of the guys said that he was married to her and had been married for 2 years, so that means that she was married at the age of 14. Our agents looked up, there was no record of a marriage certificate, so they were very suspicious of her story. So they rang her parents, they validated the story, and then they rang his parents, who also validated the story. So no matter how suspicious our agents were, they had to let her go across the border because the parents had given permission to do it. This doesn't happen very often, but in this case it did. But after I was at this stage, when I returned home, I was on the phone with one of our caseworkers, and she was at this border crossing on that day, and she said earlier that morning a woman had come across the border with 2 teenage daughters claiming to be their mother. And what's happening now is the traffickers are trying to get clever, and they're actually hiring women to take the children across, especially girls, so it looks like a mother-daughter outing across the border, and they think they're going to get away with it. But our agents have to be one step ahead of the traffickers at all time to identify those that are doing that. And so those 2 girls were actually rescued that morning. This is another border station. that we visited. Now this is one of our remote ones, so we just have a little shelter there, and then there's a policeman that also is at this area as well. And so over the little creek there is India, or it's no man's land for a little while and then goes into India, and this end is Nepal. And a lot of the traffickers, as I said earlier, think that because it's remote they may be able to get across, but in many areas here we have border stations along with the next one as well. This is another remote one out in the middle of nowhere. And if you go to the next slide, we're standing, it's right in the middle of a village actually, and this monument's there, and that's to identify Nepal and India. So we're actually standing right on the border of India and Nepal here. And then you can see children playing in the background. So my concern with these children being so close to the India border, of how many actually get kidnapped from there and taken. And just in front of us there is a forest, so they could easily disappear into the forest, never to be seen again. The next station that we went to was another large one as well. While we were there, slide hasn't moved on yet. That looks, oh, okay. Just hold off. Go back to the next. I'll just tell a story. Go back to the shelter. Yeah, that one. It was one of our large border stations, and she was in the process of being rescued. Now, her story was that she came from a small village, but she wasn't living in the village. She was living in the city getting an education. But there was a man from her village who started contacting her on social media. And over a little while, he started building trust with her, and then he offered her a weekend away over in India to go and do some shopping and buy some clothes and jewellery, and he was going to pay for it all. So finally she agreed to go with him, and they arrived at our border station, and our women agent there pulled them over and started interviewing them, and she was suspicious, so she rang the girls' parents. Now, the girls' parents were horrified that she was on the border with this particular gentleman, and she begged our agents not to let her go across. So behind the shelter we had a safe home, and so that she was going to be staying in this safe home overnight, and her father was coming down the next morning to take her home. The problem in Nepal is that a lot of the parents don't want to charge the perpetrator because of the shame factor that is over there. So many of them, unfortunately, get away with it, and then they're let go and possibly go and exploit somebody else. Nepalese people are known for their hospitality, their resilience, and their joy despite the poverty and so many natural disasters that they have in their country. Recently, I don't know if you've seen the news, it was a little bit on our news, but they had civil unrest there for about a week. The government put a ban on social media, so all the young people went and attacked the Parliament House. They burnt it down, burnt down the Prime Minister's house. He ended up resigning along with many from his party, and then they assigned another Prime Minister who was not a part of a political party. She's actually a judge. And so the young people were very happy, and the elections are in March next year, so we'll see what happens there. And then a week ago, the country was closed down again for 3 or 4 days because of heavy rain, and floods came through, and there was many landslides. So it's very difficult for the people in Nepal. There's always something that they have to battle with, but they're very hospitable, very joyful in spite of all those things. As we know, Nepal is home to 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, including Mount Everest. And I had the privilege there of taking a joy flight over the Himalayas, which was absolutely amazing. The photos don't do anything for it, really. It's way more amazing than the photos show, but they are quite magnificent, and it was a privilege to be able to see that. I asked ChatGPT, as we all do these days, I was wondering what would Nepal be known for if there wasn't human trafficking there. And this is what ChatGPT said. It said, if human trafficking were not a part of Nepal's story, it would be known only for its majesty. Its children would be students and climbers, not statistics. Its daughters would be leaders and artists, not commodities. Nepal is more than its pain. It's a land of endless potential, sacred beauty, and resilient people. Let's fight for that version of Nepal, the one that God sees. Nepal is not just the only country that we work in. We are across 5 different regions around the world, predominantly Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And rescue in these countries all looks very different. Every country is unique, so we have to have a different strategy for our rescues. Many of you are familiar with our covert rescues. This is where our agents go undercover. They'll go into bars, brothels, massage parlours, identifying children that may be working there. And also we have agents in Africa. There's a huge issue of children running their own homes. Their parents have either died of HIV or malnutrition or have left the country looking for other work and haven't returned. So the only way that these children can survive is selling their bodies to put the next meal on the table. So we have agents going in, scouting these villages in Africa, identifying these children and helping them out. We also work very closely with law enforcement officers, where we get all the information that an individual or a organisation is, or an establishment is selling children. Then we'll take that to the police, and together they'll go and do a raid on that establishment. And the great thing about the raids is that multiple children will be rescued, and the perpetrator then gets arrested and put behind bars for a very, very long time. Our OSEC work is increasing. Our OSEC is our online sexual exploitation work. We have agents who continually scout online, looking for perpetrators selling children online. I don't know if any of you caught it, but a few weeks ago, 7 Spotlight did an episode on our work, on our OSEC work, and part of this is, I probably shared the story last year, where we rescued a 5-year-old by the name of Chelsea, and we're in the Philippines, and we were able to hand over 395 names of Australians who were part of exploiting this child, were funding her exploitation. So we handed that over to the Australian Federal Police. The 7 Spotlight did a little bit of a follow-up on that. Unfortunately, one of the guys that they were investigating was let off for some reason, even though our agents had a number of messaging that was going between the two. But our justice system, unfortunately, is not at its best at the moment. But what Destiny Rescue is doing and what the police were doing and what 7 Spotlight did was very, very good. And if you'd like to follow that up, you can actually go to 7 Plus and watch that episode on streaming. So far this year, we have rescued 4,157 individuals, which brings our all-time rescues to 23,041, consisting of 992 raids and 1,281 arrests. That's our overall rescues. So we've still got a couple of months. Our rescue agents continually out there night after night, day after day, looking for these vulnerable children. What happens after rescue, you may ask? Every child that is rescued goes through trauma. and carries the same scars, but what they do with those scars differs from individual to individual. Some will use it as a springboard into making something different for themselves and for their community, all motivated by the fact that no one should have to go through what they go through themselves. So 2 things will happen after a rescue. They'll either be reintegrated back to their family, and that's only if it's safe to do so. If the parents aren't responsible for their trafficking, if the child just happened to be tricked or ended up in a job place that wasn't what she was originally thinking it was, then they can go back home. And that's the best scenario because their healing is way better when they're in their family environment. But if it's not safe to do so, they'll go into a care facility, either one of our care facilities, or we work with a number of partner organisations in the countries we work, and we'll put them in those facilities. Or in the Philippines, the government have a very good care facility, and they will go into government care. And each of these children are loved and cared for and have the opportunity to go through trauma counselling. They will get medical care. They will have the opportunity, depending on their age, to get an education or vocational training, and then eventually safe job placement. I just want to show you a video. This is one of our rescue agents. He's actually from the Sunshine Coast, but he's been working in Thailand for a number of years. He's our international rescue agent manager. And one day he was having a conversation with God about whether he's making a difference. Because our rescue agents, a lot of the time, don't hear the success stories. They're out there, they're rescuing the girls, then they hand them over to our social workers who then take them into care, and then they're back out in the streets looking for the next one. So sometimes they get a bit discouraged. Am I making a difference? And this is an interview by Damo, who's the rescue agent.
I can remember one time I was having a real wrestle with God. I was kicking stones and I was questioning Him. Are we making a difference in these kids' lives? Are we really making a difference? I was in Bangkok near the airport because I had an early flight to go to another country. I was in a market area where a lot of shift workers were at midnight. And I just remember having this thought, are we really making a difference in these kids' lives? And then I hear my name get called out. And I see these 2 girls start running towards me. And I was like, what? No, who's this? I had a bit of a shock. And as they get closer, I realised that who they were. They were 2 girls that I'd rescued many years ago. And they grabbed me, they hugged me, and they were jumping up and down, very excited to see me. A couple, man and a lady, had caught up by that time, friends of theirs, and they turned to them and said, this is the man I've been telling you about. This is him. This is the man who helped us. And they started crying, and because they started crying, I started crying. It was just an awesome moment, right? And they were just kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I said to them, like a concerned father would, I was like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Because there was bars and that around in this area. They knew what I was implying, and I said, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're nurses now. We're working at the local hospital in this area. And I can remember that Destiny Rescue put them through a pre-vocational course, and they've gone on to do nursing, and now they're working together as nurses. And it was right then that it felt God say to me, there you go, son. This is why you're doing what you're doing. You don't see what happens to these kids, but you are truly making a difference in these kids' lives. And that was a miracle. For those girls to be there at that time, on that day, for me to hear that was just amazing. It was good.
So many of the children that we rescue go on to be nurses or work in cafes or beauty. A lot of the girls want to go into hairdressing and beauty, and we give them those opportunities to be able to do that. I started this morning with the story where I was tricked. I believed a lie, but it was a prank and it was funny. But for thousands of children, the lies that they're being fed are not a joke. It ends in pain and slavery. But together with our supporters here in Australia, we are unmasking the lies. We're rescuing the children exploited, and we are rewriting their story one child at a time. Our work exists because of our faithful supporters, and you guys, this church is a faithful supporter. You're on the front line with us. You're not in the background, in behind the scenes. You're on the front line with us on every rescue. Through your prayers, generosity and partnership, lives are being transformed on a daily basis. While I was in Nepal, I had the opportunity we were invited to a staff day that they were having, and all the staff were gathered in one area, and we had the opportunity to honour them and thank them for the work that they're doing, and they returned it and thanked us for the work that we were doing here in Australia in providing the resources for them to do their work. And as you notice by the photo, there's about 80 people on staff there, and majority of them are women. And as I looked around the room that day, I got another revelation of the work that we're doing. Not only are we rescuing children, but we're providing employment for those 80 people. And we're breaking the cycle of poverty over them, over their family, and over their children's and generations to come lives. So if you ever wondered whether your supporters making a difference, the many trips that I've had into Cambodia and Thailand over the years and this trip into Nepal, you're definitely making a difference. I'm seeing and hearing stories of transformed lives on a daily basis. Yes, we do hear the other side of it where, kids are being trafficked, but be reassured there's many, many children who are going on to a better life and a better future. And that's not just in Nepal, that's right throughout our different countries that we're working in. So I'd like to invite you today, if you haven't been a part of the work of Destiny Rescue and would like to, there are ways that you can get involved. One is through prayer. We need your prayers. We're very much aware that we are working in the devil's playground. I can't really think of anything really worse than a child being sexually exploited. And the devil doesn't like us doing the work that we're doing. So we definitely need your prayers. Spreading the word. Awareness is very important to what we do. People need to hear about what we're doing. You may not be able to help, but you may know someone else who can help. A business, an individual, schools, other churches. Spreading the word is very important. We need an army of people behind us so that we can keep going forth into the world and rescuing these kids. You can also give on a monthly basis or a one-time gift, and as you know, that goes into fueling our rescues and transforming lives. So I just want to thank you as Kawana Life. You've been supporting us for quite a number of years now, and you're truly making a difference, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity of being able to just come and give you an update this morning, and keep up the good work. And I'll hand it back to